All right, Lauren, stand by for that. Let's talk a little bit about what's been going on over the last 10 days or so. More than that, actually about 2 weeks. And that is, we've got a timeline, so we're going to put it up. The Secretary of Defense, that man right there, Lloyd Austin, on December 22nd, first box on the left on the top, he went into a hospital, apparently, for elective surgery. Then Monday, January 1st, he was hospitalized and taken via ambulance to Walter Reed, and he was placed in intensive care. Yeah, he had terrible pain. So here he is, the Secretary of Defense, our top war fighter. And you know what? Nobody knew he was there. On Tuesday, Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks told she would be doing certain operational duties, but not knowing that he was in the hospital. It wasn't until Thursday that President Biden was told, and then Friday, senior Defense Department officials and Congress were told as well. And here's the thing. Just the fact that he did not tell the White House, that is now today a gift to the Republicans because it shows unbelievably bad judgment on the part of the Secretary of Defense.
So he's in ICU on Monday. She, the deputy, doesn't even find out that she's going to have to cover some of his duties.
She was in charge.
Tuesday, doesn't even know he's in the hospital. She was on vacation in Puerto Rico. Donald Trump said failed Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin should be fired immediately for improper professional conduct and dereliction of duty. He's been missing for a week, and nobody, including his boss, crooked Joe Biden, has a clue as to where he was or might be. He has performed poorly and should have been dismissed long ago.
Right, and this is what Lloyd Austin says. I also understand that the media concerns about transparency, and I recognize it could have done a better job. You think? Ensuring the public was appropriately informed. I commit to doing better, but this is important to say. This was my medical procedure, and I take full responsibility for my decisions about disclosure. The other thing, I just surprised Lawrence, because when you go in the military, there's always such a responsibility and accountability. That's what's drilled into you. This guy's a general. This guy's at war a series of years. It's not like we're not in the middle of a contentious situation in the Middle East. We have a Secretary of State fanning out to 5 countries trying to say, guys, let cooler heads prevail. We have our ships in the middle of guarding commercial vessels going through the Red Sea with the Houthi rebels are trying to blow us up. We blew up 3 ships 2 weeks ago, and we're wondering when the next attack's going to come from an Iran proxy. And this guy is just MIA? I mean, that's fireable, don't you think?
No, I totally agree, Brian. And I respect the general's military service. That's why I'm so shocked that he conducted himself in this way. I mean, there's a rank and file. There's a command procedures that you must follow, and the president is the commander-in-chief. I'm also concerned with everything that's happening in the Middle East, all these conflicts, when China knocking at our door, Russia knocking at our door, what's happening in Ukraine, just our general defense, that the president didn't speak to the Secretary of Defense for an entire week.
And he doesn't think anything's wrong with this.
I mean,
or he's not making any decisions.
That's incredible.
Lawrence. He might, he's a figurehead, it seems. He's probably not making any decisions anyway. He's just implementing what he's told to do. So if he's missed for a week, no one seems to care. I mean, not only does the president put a lid on it like 4 o'clock, comes back from vacation with 3 days of an empty schedule, but now we have a Secretary of Defense who disappears and doesn't tell anybody. Can you imagine if Donald Trump was in office? CNN wouldn't have taken a commercial for 6 days. They'd be so outraged that this dysfunctional White House should not, the president is so unworthy of the position.
Look, we hope he's okay. I'm sorry that he was in a lot of pain. But we wish him all the best. But the way this was handled was poorly. You have to tell other people when you're in the hospital, when you are in charge of our national security. Politico says this. This is the headline. Someone's head has to roll. They go on to say, not telling the White House, Congress, or the media he's sick, and then telling Pentagon staff he's working from home is next level. This is a problem. Someone made the decision not to disclose. That person will likely be gone shortly.
So he went in originally for an elective medical procedure, and nobody is saying what it is. He thought he would be able to go in and have this done. It sounds like it was something minor. Could have been cosmetic. Could have. People are emailing us suggestions. A lot of them are things where you go in, you come out. But something went haywire, where 8 days later he's in intense pain. He thought nobody would ever find out about it, but it has currently hit the fan. And Lawrence, just one more thing. Here's the thing. So what is the reaction of the President of the United States? The President said yesterday he retains confidence in Secretary Austin. Now, here's the thing. Joe Biden, as we have said a million times, is very loyal to people in his cabinet. You know, pretty much his entire cabinet is still intact 3 years later. But Joe's son, Beau, served as a military lawyer under Austin when he was the top commander in Iraq. Beau and Lloyd also would often go to Catholic Mass together. So there is a family connection which could actually keep him in the job because of loyalty rather than the fact that he did something really dumb. Lawrence?
I think as the commander-in-chief, allowing this to stand when no other serviceman or woman would be able to get away with this. He was MIA. He was MIA for a period of time, and the president had no idea about this. The White House didn't know. The Secretary of State didn't know. The National Security Advisor didn't know. And there was not even a peep. And they lied and said that he was working from home when he was actually in the hospital.
Well, that's what he said.
So, look, they've been saying for a while that the president is constantly briefed by his cabinet. We now know that's not true. He did not talk to the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense for over a week and had no idea where he was. So this is not just a question about the Secretary of Defense. This is about the president's leadership as well. And I don't think they want to deal with this scandal when people have said that the president is weak and frail and not aware of what's going on. I think this kind of proves it.
Right. He doesn't have press conferences. He doesn't do interviews. He's good at going on vacation, and we really don't know. We know he was quite angry if you watched him on Friday during that address. So then we just saw him nothing over the weekend.
And today he's in Charleston. All right. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.